Thank you for joining us on the Word of Encouragement here on this Tuesday. And I trust that you realize that every day can be a day filled with joy. The Spirit of God will give us joy in our spirit, even if situations are not the best. In fact, some of the best times of joy may be at some of the worst times in our lives, and we need to keep that in mind. God has promised to give us the very peace that He has, the very joy that He has. That's a wonderful thing. Well, I want to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 7 here today, and it is a chapter which deals with many different hard situations that people find themselves in. People that are unmarried that want to be married, people that are married to lost spouses, what do they do? People that are in difficult situations, such as being a slave and so forth. And we read in verse 24, "Brethren, let every man, wherein he is called, therein abide with God." In other words, whatever state we find ourselves in, we need to be content. God gives grace even in some of the worst situations, if we're willing to accept that, not be jealous, not be covetous, not be frustrated, not be bitter against God, but if we're willing to accept where we are at that point and know that we can serve God in that situation, then God can use us, and oftentimes God will deliver. I've just been reading Georgie Venn's book on his time in prison. He was a Russian pastor, one of the leaders of the Russian Baptists in both Ukraine and Russia. I knew him well because once he was exiled to America, I had the privilege of serving with him in his ministry, and it was a great joy to be able to do that. I'm so thankful for that opportunity that I had. But as I was reading that, I saw over and over how he had to make the decision, I am going to be content. And I cannot even imagine being in 50 degree below zero conditions, being in the kind of squalor he was in prisons in Siberia, and being able to rejoice in the Lord and be thankful he was able to reach people with the gospel. But he was. And so all of us, when we get into situations we don't like, I mean, there's things that are frustrating. There are things that we wish wouldn't have happened. There are sometimes situations that go on for a period of time that we just have to endure. But if we live frustrated, we find ourselves getting bitter, we're going to lose the blessing of God. And so, like what the Apostle Paul says, make the best of the situation you're in. You're bought with a price. You're very special to the Lord. Abide in the calling that you have. Abide in your situation until God changes that. But don't let your circumstances ruin your testimony and your service for God at this stage in your life. Very, very important truth that God gives us here in 1 Corinthians 7. So let's be encouraged. God will take care of us. He knows how to help us. But today, no matter what we're finding ourselves in, let's rejoice, let's let God work, and let's abide in that calling so that we can be a testimony of His goodness.